No, that was your rebuttal. I'm breaking the format. So, it's great being moderator. So up next we have external lobbying. I have some questions about external lobbying, and this question will go to Sarah first. So, the current political climate in Nova Scotia is pretty bleak for post-secondary education. The government's cut 7% from university grants over the last 2 years, and every indication is that they plan on cutting a further 3% next year. Under this reality, how will you engage in provincial advocacy next year?
Thanks for the question, Chris. So just because a new MOU has been recently signed doesn't mean that students should give up. There's a place for students to have in determining where those cuts are affected, where they take place, not only through the government but also by lobbying our administration. So it's extremely important to continue to pressure the government to be mindful of where those cuts are going. And some tuition increases haven't been settled upon yet. So it's extremely important for students to still be a voice protecting those other students in unprotected programs. Another aspect of student lobbying that's not covered through the MOU is the student loans program. So that is something that is completely separate from the MOU, but by making positive changes and positive policy promotion there, we can still help the neediest students and help the students that still need the extra help that they're looking for. So those are definitely two priorities. And if we're not...
Thank you, Sarah.
1 minute is really quick.
1 minute is very quick. And Jamie?
I think the first point is around holding the government accountable. At the AGM last week, Chris mentioned that, I think his words were, he was peeved at the government because when the MOU was signed last year, his understanding was that there would be a cap of about 3% increases over the next 3 years, and now it seems that next year that could be open for renegotiation. So I think if there was an allusion to move in the direction of a 3% cap, then we need to hold the government accountable to that and make the student voice heard on that front. The one thing that I would want to bring to the table that's kind of, I think, a new tactic is around engaging with non-student voices around student issues. So there's business organizations that are directly and indirectly tied to student interests. They're reliant on student activity in the city and through the province. There's at-risk youth organizations dealing with poverty issues, who all understand the importance of an accessible education. And so the government doesn't want to be perceived as catering to special interest groups, aka ANSA or the CFS. They want to be perceived as making decisions for the province as a whole, and if we can unite those voices around a common issue, being students, then I think that's the best approach to that.
Thank you, Jamie. And Sarah, you have 30 seconds.
So I think Jamie does hit on a great point about working with other organizations, and in fact both ANSA and CASA, our provincial and federal lobby groups, do partner regularly with other organizations on policy proposals, on research, and on advocacy efforts. So that is an avenue that we already undertake. And for example, the Green Party actually asked CASA to help guide its post-secondary education platform in the last election. So there are groups that are actively seeking out our input already.
Thank you. Jamie?
There's particularly having worked in government, I noticed essentially a research trap is how I'd call it, where it's like gathering all the stats and figures that we can possibly gather to say why education is important. We don't need stockpiles of documents to tell us why education is important. We need those voices to actually be heard, and I think I've demonstrated a capacity to mobilize people, empower people to actually make those voices heard.
Thank you.